Hey guys, you're watching Tech Radar. My name's Basil and we're live to talk about the Huawei P20 Pro. This camera phone is rumored to pack not one, not two, but three cameras, and that is just around the back. One of them, the latest leaks, looks like it's going to be a 40 megapixel camera. And as someone who's been into phones for a very, very long time, that just makes me think of Nokia, specifically Nokia PureView, the Nokia 808 PureView, and the Nokia Lumia 1020 that adopted that technology and whacked an optical image stabilized lens into the mix, making it one of the best camera phones of all time. Now, if you've seen our article on Tech Radar that I just penned, I will throw a link to it into the live chat. You'll know that both the 808, thanks to Symbian OS, and the 1020, thanks to Windows Phone, well, they were victims of their failed operating systems, but the Huawei P20 Pro looks like it's going to run Android. It looks like it's going to be pretty set, given the fact the Mate 10 and Mate 10 Pro were such good devices. So could this finally be the megapixel behemoth that we've been waiting for? I'm going to talk about all of that in a second, but before I do, it's going to be a quick session of shout outs to a bunch of people in the live chat, specifically Johnny Lee. Johnny Lee is probably the most eager beaver in the live chats today, so thank you very much, Johnny, for jumping in. Also, Joy Mukherjee says it's time. It is indeed time, and we are getting going. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any other chats. Any questions that you have throughout this live show, fire them into the comments section of the live chat window that you can find on YouTube. Right, let's get talking about the rumours around the Huawei P20 range. The Huawei P20, it looks like it's going to launch on March the 27th alongside the P20 Lite and the P20 Pro. The P20 Pro will be the more advanced version of the two. What's also worth noting is that there was no Huawei P11, P12, P13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 or 19. Huawei has skipped an entire list of numbers in order to make the P20 happen. Don't know why that is, but if it's going to be the standard marketing jargon, it is that it is such a break from tradition, and it kind of is a big break from tradition. You've got an 18:9 screen on here based on all the leaks. In fact, more than 18:9, and there is a notch, and everyone who sees a notch is going to immediately think iPhone, and that's fair. Apple introduced it with the iPhone 10, but at Mobile World Congress we saw the Asus Zenfone launch, as well as an entire range of devices that had notches, and Android P, the latest developer preview of Android, even has an artificial notch built in to the operating system. So we're clearly going to be seeing a lot more notches coming up. I guess it's all going to come down to how the manufacturers handle the notches. Do they make them as clear and visible as Apple's notches, or do they make them areas for the battery and time with a black bar the rest of the way? The reason I say that is because many of you may have seen the LG G7 has been leaked as well. We reported the supposed leak by an Israeli journalist at Mobile World Congress of what the phone could end up being, and LG seems to have blacked out the bar at the top, so it doesn't even look like there's a notch there at all, but there is room to display things like the battery and time. Let's take a quick look back at the chat room, see what you guys are saying, and we have a lot more comments and questions. Fantastic. Whew, I was getting worried there that it was going to be just me on this couch all by myself, but no, we have shout outs to Nadal, to Anas, to Mr. Skicam, Zombie SD, Juna Abobo, and King of the Monsters, not to mention Oluchuku, Nadal, and Robert Storm. Let's start taking some of your questions now. First one from Nadal. The link you posted earlier does not work. Let me throw another one in there. In fact, that doesn't work because YouTube doesn't let us throw our links in. If you go to techradar.com, the first image that you will see is a Huawei P20, and that will explain my reasoning behind in more detail than I will talk about in this, the reasons I think the Nokia PureView technology of oversampling, which I will talk about, could be heavily featured. So techradar.com. I will throw that in there now. techradar.com. Live chat for some reason screws up links, so we'll have to look into that. But in the meantime, that techradar.com one should work. So thank you for flagging that one with me. Mr. Skicam says P20 better be as good as Mate 10 Pro, or else. Or else what? So based on the looks of P20 is going to be better than the Mate 10 Pro. By the looks of things, it isn't just going to be about those 3 cameras. It's going to have the same processor, at least the same RAM. So in that respect, it's going to be at least as good. But when you factor in that additional camera clout, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. If this is a 40 megapixel camera, it is uncharted territory. At least with the Mate 10 Pro, we were seeing Huawei build on a formula that they had already established had worked on the P10 and on the Mate 9. This, if it's completely new, it could be ruining something that was already kind of working, or it could be making something incredible and revolutionary. I'm definitely hoping for the latter. Zombie SD says, I hope that Huawei is going towards stock Android. I think, just guessing, you're going to be off the mark there. I mean, at the very most, I think we can hope for, I guess Huawei could implement a more stock default theme, but Huawei's pretty entrenched with an Emotion UI, not just in the Huawei line, but also with the Honor devices as well. Juno says, I hope to know more about the P20 Pro, and I hope to be able to tell you more. If there's anything in particular that you want to know, please ping it in here. I've had them trawl through every single rumours site that I can find, so I think it's all in here somewhere. But if you want me to touch on anything specific, just shout. And so we can see King of the Monsters says it's an iPhone clone, and that's owing to the notch. Can you explain the differences between the P series and the Mate series? I was fortunate enough to have a chat with the CEO of Huawei, Richard Yu, Mobile World Congress, and that's a question I asked him. Can you explain the difference between the Huawei P series and Mate series? And he said that the Huawei Mate series is all about power and size, giving you more size and more power in a premium design. And it's also going to be the one that introduces the new Kirin device, or Kirin chipset, sorry. So it introduced the Kirin 960, introduced that AI story. He said the P series is always going to focus on camera innovation and design. Now we've seen design boom, like if you type in Google, again I would paste the link in, but YouTube chat, not the best for this. If you type in design boom, Huawei P20 Pro color, it shows you a range of gradient colors that by the looks of things from one side to the other, it's actually a different color. I don't know if that just changes based on the angle that you're holding the phone, which we have kind of seen before, or if it is just an actual different color from top to bottom and it's like a tie-dye phone. Whichever it is, it looks pretty cool. It's the kind of purple to turquoise Huawei P20 render. That was officially leaked by, I think it is WinFuture. So if you type Huawei P20 WinFuture, W-I-N-F-U-T-U-R-E, then that should pull it up. It looks impressive. It looks very, very impressive. So clearly, Huawei is trying to get design and camera as the center of attention for the P series of devices. So at least that's according to Mr. Yu himself. So we have a question from Joy. You handle BTech and TechRadar? No, I'm 100% at TechRadar now. Zeljko and Zulovic, notch is the wrong way to go. Look at the Vivo with its Apex phone. Notch, no notch, no notch with a sensor under the glass. So that's from Zeljko. Yes, so the Vivo phone, which we covered at Mobile World Congress, you can see our video of it. It looks amazing, but it does have an issue. It has a mechanically rising front camera. When you introduce mechanical parts onto any device, you're introducing another area that it could potentially break. We don't know how hardy it is. It's just a prototype from Vivo, but that's worth noting. So definitely, if you haven't seen it, it's a very, very cool device to look at. It looks sensational, but the mechanical side to it does mean that I wouldn't feel comfortable. If you drop it and the camera's out, the selfie camera, then and it breaks, it's just like, oh no, no more selfies. Right, more questions. We have a question from The notch resembles the iPhone 10, but it's not a total design copy from Junar. Hello from Uzbekistan, Jurabek. Hello, Jurabek. We have, Vivo Apex. So much Vivo Apex love. Now, this is super interesting because Vivo wasn't even a brand that we'd heard of last year, but not mainstream. But now, because they've introduced the under-screen fingerprint scanner, they've become more of a household name with the tech enthusiasts like yourselves. Guessing if you're in the live chat, you are enthusiastic about tech. The divine truth, how do notches work while watching video? Would you have black either side? Seems a bit silly. So based on measurements of the P20, it looks like it's going to be wider than 18 by 9. So if you're watching an 18 by 9 piece of video, you'll actually have the notch blacked out completely. And if it's something like an OLED screen, you'll be able to get deep and dark enough black so you don't see the notch. And you'll just have that 18 by 9 area occupied by ideally 18 by 9 content. There is a setting within iPhones to allow you to see the notch if you zoom in on the video enough, and that kind of looks a bit weird. You just have a notch cut out and you're missing a piece of your footage. So I'd probably opt for it to be a clean rectangle. It'll be really interesting to see how Huawei does it. Again, remember, Emotion UI, as much as it's heavy, it brings in the most customization when it comes to overlays on Android. So it'll probably, I'm guessing, introduce a variety of ways of handling the notch. Will the P20 Pro be more expensive than the Mate 10 Pro? I am glad someone's asking me about price, because techradar.com stay on top of our P20 and P20 Pro hub, because we've got the prices there. These are just speculative prices based on leaks. Everything I'm saying, by the way, is based entirely on speculation, because as much as a shed load of stuff has leaked about these phones, we can't say anything conclusive. They haven't been announced officially. March 27th, we will be at the launch. Okay, back to pricing. P20 price looks like it's set to launch at €679, so that's around £600. Now that's cheaper than the Mate 10 Pro. The Mate 10 Pro launched at £699 on 3 in the UK. The P20 Pro price looks like it's going to be a lot more expensive. €899. If you're in the US, that's around $1,100, and that's £790. Now it's worth saying that unlike with the P10 and the P10 Plus, these two devices, the P20 and the P20 Pro, will have a lot more differentiating them. There was just aperture differentiating the cameras of the P10 series, whereas this time round you're getting completely different camera experiences based on the megapixel counts. Now there is a cumulative, wait for it, 80 megapixels rumoured to be on the P20 Pro, whereas the P20 regular looks like a relatively kind of modest device on the megapixel front. A 12 megapixel primary sensor with a 20 megapixel secondary sensor, which is monochrome, which is a setup that we've seen time and time again from the Mate 10 to the P10 to the Mate 9 before it. Like I said, it's a setup that works, but it could be a setup that's getting a little bit long in the tooth, and that's why with the Pro, Huawei's testing out a new way of doing things. Okay, let's talk about some of the possible setups for the cameras around the back. So we know what's leaked. The leaks have been that their apertures are going to range from f1.6 through to f2.4 across the 3 sensors around the back, paired with a 20 megapixel plus front camera. I think that's 24 megapixels or something crazy numbers. But the monochrome sensor around the back, according to leaks, will be 20 megapixels, just like with the Mate 10, Mate 10 Pro, for example. The primary RGB camera on the Mate 10 Pro will be 40 megapixels, while the 8 megapixel third camera, which has a zoom, will be 8 megapixels. As for the apertures, you have f1.6, I'm guessing they'll be on the primary camera, maybe the monochrome camera, because that's exactly what we've seen before on the Huawei P10, on the Huawei Mate 10. And the f2.4 aperture will probably be on the optical zoom lens. The 40 megapixel camera is apparently, according to the leaks, going to combine with the others to create something called a 5 times hybrid zoom. What that's going to do, it's going to take the information from the 2 times zoom camera and then take the information from the 40 megapixel sensor and squish down into a little portion of it, which will still make a fair few pixels and give you a combination optical zoom, digital zoom that might blow your socks off. So that's what another one of the leaks has said. Most of these leaks, by the way, when it comes to specifics, are from XDA developers, and the leaks, like I said, when it comes to design, are from WinFuture. So that's exciting because it makes me think of the Nokia 808 PureView. The Nokia 808 PureView introduced a 41 megapixel sensor paired with Carl Zeiss optics. There was no image stabilization on the original, but image stabilization was brought on the Lumia 1020, which was a continuation of that technology. It was combined with a xenon flash, which we know we're not going to see on the Huawei P20 Pro. Now, the way this worked is it would actually, despite being a 40 megapixel sensor, it would produce 5 megapixel images. It would do something called oversampling. It would grab a series of pixels or subpixels even, or no, it would be pixels. It would grab a series of pixels and effectively turn them into 1 pixel of information, averaging out the color from that area, so it would more effectively cancel out noise than other camera phones of its day. And it worked pretty well. Just hanging up a phone call on my phone watch. There you go. So that's oversampling. What's really cool about this is that if this works on the P20, camera phones have already kind of like gone beyond the capabilities of the 808 PureView without even oversampling. If you combine oversampling with the software in smartphones today, you should get some incredibly good results. So I'm really optimistic that Huawei takes this oversampling route. We've seen it before. We've also seen it since Nokia. We've seen it on the HTC series, the use of the front camera. They'll often use high resolution sensors but create 3 megapixel images, and as a result you're using oversampling. Sony megapixel cameras are like 20.3 megapixels, the new ones are 19 megapixels, and they tend to produce 12 megapixel images. So like I said, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for oversampling. Also, it would be something different. It would be something different because we haven't seen anything in the region of 40 megapixel oversampling since the days of the Nokia 808 PureView. So it could be that Huawei is seriously gunning for people who are just missing that old Nokia photographic focus. It's time for some comments. Let's see what you're saying. So, there have been loads of comments in here. Mr. SkiCam, what can the AI chipset do more than identifying different kinds of pictures that you are taking? So that's a really good question. AI chipsets in the past have only really focused on looking at scenes and also translating languages. So that's another area. Huawei's Mate 10 Pro launched in partnership with Microsoft's own translation software. What that did was offline translate through using the camera, but also spoken words more quickly than were it a non-AI chip. So that's another area it could help. What's also going to be interesting is I'm looking forward to the day that an AI chip can actually help you become a better photographer, work out the scene, work out like things like a histogram, like your balance of colors, of contrasts and everything like that. But we're absolutely not there yet, and we don't know what software-wise the P20 is going to introduce into the mix. And I agree that AI isn't really fully explored on a consumer level. That said, Huawei did introduce that self-driving car that was powered by a Mate 10 Pro at Mobile World Congress. Prabhakaran says, just tell me why I have to take Nokia 6 New. I didn't quite understand that question. Leave Huawei alone. We've got a strange bunch of questions from you guys. Apologies that I can't necessarily read this in advance, so I am reading a lot out loud as I go. Huawei P20 will be released on March 27th, right? Right, so we're going to be there March the 27th, and we're also going to be conducting a bunch of tests with other smartphones. So let us know what you want us to compare it to. Does the 40 megapixel camera of the P20 beat the Google Pixel 2? Now, thank you for asking that question. The reason being, we've actually just posted a video on YouTube, and there'll be an article going up very soon around the Google Pixel 2 XL versus the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus versus the iPhone 10. We've compared the bokeh modes across all of those cameras, and the Google Pixel 2 XL actually won, in spite of it being the only one with a single rear camera. So the Google Pixel 2 XL, as far as bokeh modes go, and generally is regarded as, if not the best, one of the best smartphones around. So that will be a real test. Can the Huawei P20 Pro beat the Pixel 2 XL? Can't wait to test it out. Mob Compre Rumours says, bro, it's 14 megapixels. So Akash Singh says 40 megapixels. So as you can see, we haven't had anything confirmed. As soon as the specs officially drop, we'll be sure to update our P20 Hub. TechRadar.com. Subhash says, love your videos as always. Thank you very much. We have Sadman, is Nokia going to get back another blast of camera megapixels? So actually Nokia, as it stands, the new Nokia HMD Global, hasn't focused quite so much on the camera as it has on other aspects of its interface. The Nokia 8 launched, and it actually had a Samsung Galaxy, I think it was an S6 or S7 sensor inside, optical image stabilization. They had Ozo technology, which was producing some really great microphone recording, and it could take 4K front camera video as well. But the pure image quality on the rear camera wasn't mind-blowing, and it didn't even launch with manual modes. The new Nokia 8 Sirocco has launched with manual modes, so Nokia HMD is clearly upping its game. But I think it's going to be a while if we see that kind of level of R&D around imaging, because it was super expensive to do. And like, remember the 808 PureView, it was an expensive phone as well at the time. And when it launched with Symbian, an operating system that was on its way out. Nokia of old took a lot of risks. I'm pretty sure HMD will want to be playing it safe for a while until it makes a name for itself, and then fingers crossed they can resurrect some of that Carl Zeiss 41 megapixel magic. What do you prefer, the Samsung Galaxy Note or the S9 Plus? That's from Durabek. I personally prefer the Note as a device because I love drawing, but the S9 Plus has better battery life because, yeah, the Note unfortunately just dies before most of my personal days are done. Philip Tyndall, hope the 40 megapixel is true. Hopefully it'll be as good as the Lumia 1020's Zeiss camera, and not just there to spec differentiate from the myriad of other devices. Philip Tyndall, you are a man after my own heart. I could not agree more with you. Specifically, I'm looking forward to seeing how whether they do the oversampling. Will you end up with 40 megapixel images? Because then you're going to fill up your storage in no time. Although some of the rumors going around are that you're going to have 128 256 gigabytes of storage on board, which would be sweet. Right, something else that you could do with a 41 megapixel PureView camera, you could take a picture in like full 41 megapixel resolution, and then it would produce a 5 megapixel image off the back of it, which is fine. But then you could crop into that image, i.e. take a small chunk of that image with old Nokia phones, and it would use the information that's stored in that 41 megapixel image to create a crop that was still 5 megapixels. And if you have good lighting, where you're not needing the oversampling for something like noise reduction, you've got the image stabilization holding everything nice and still, you are able to take a picture of, from the River Thames, for example, of the London skyline, and crop into it as like you would have been able to on like a entry-level DSLR at the time. I remember doing this alongside one, and I was astounded. In low light, this crumbles, don't get me wrong. But if you could do something like that, that would be sweet as. So, Mr. Ski, does a P20 have an OLED screen, and what are its video recording capabilities? So the leaks have suggested it's 960 frames per second at 720p, just like the Samsung Galaxy S9. Currently, the Sony Xperia XZ2 is the only camera phone that can record full HD at 960 frames per second. As for 4K, we expect 4K is there. Haven't seen any leaks around specifics with regards to frame rates on 4K. We have another bunch of questions. What is the time here? It is 3:54 p.m. What do you think about Huawei's user interface? I've already touched on it. Emotion UI is like heavy user interface, but at the same time, it gives you a lot of control over your experience. So whether it's doing stuff like changing your theme transition, changing the white balance, etc., it's really flexible. So I personally quite like it. My favorite thing about it is, as a technology reviewer, you have to jump from one phone to another relatively often, and Emotion UI just has a really good backup system called Phone Clone, which will copy the position of all your applications. And what I also like is that you can very quickly arrange your home screen. So even if you don't use Phone Clone, you just tap on the applications that you want and you can checkbox them and throw them into folders. So that side of it, as like a user who changes phone often, really saves me time, nice and considered, but I also find it a little bit heavy in other respects as well. Any updates about a Microsoft smartphone? Nothing that I've seen, I'm afraid, and that was from Akash. Is there a Mate 20 Pro in the offing? In the offing, if you mean office, no, there is no Mate 20 Pro. Mate 20 Pro has unfortunately never seen this office. What do you think? We've got some more questions. Do we have any rumors about the camera placement? Absolutely. So if you see the thumbnail for this, or just techradar.com, you can see our Huawei P20 Pro hub. You'll be able to see that the three cameras are vertical. Don't know which of them is the zoom camera. Anticipate it's a standalone camera. Now here's the other thing. Optical image stabilization isn't mentioned in any of the leaks. 40 megapixels. In order to get that optical image stabilization onto the 1020 PureView, we had to see a really hefty camera surround on the back of it. If there is no camera surround and you've got 40 million pixels in here, I'm just going to guess that optical image stabilization isn't there, or it is a really teeny tiny sensor on that 40 megapixel sensor. So based on the size, I'm not even convinced it's 40 megapixels, but that's what the leaks are saying. But if it is, and it has OIS and it performs well, my mind will be blown, because Huawei will, by the looks of things, managed to break the laws of physics. So yeah, really looking forward to finding that one out. Oh, so many questions, you guys, blowing my mind. We have a question from, is it going to have a glass back, from Sean Burns? I hate all glass back phones. Unfortunately, Sean Burns, based on the leaks, it looks like you're going to hate this phone. Just based on the renders. Again, nothing categorical here. It looks seriously slick. The Mate 10 and Mate 10 Pro introduced glass backs as well. Huawei's really mastering that curved glass. And by the looks of it on here, it will be curved glass as well. Whether it's going to be IP, water and dust resistant, we don't know yet. Although one of the leaks pointed to the fact that the P20 Pro will be IP, water and dust resistant, and Huawei's never done a metal water resistant phone. Again, furtherly suggesting that it may well have a glass back. Isn't AI just another name for scene recognition like normal cameras, Sean Burns? You cynic, you. But that's pretty much what everyone else in the industry was thinking. I'm really looking forward to seeing it be like explained in a more differentiated way. Do you like Jaffa cakes, from BD? I do like Jaffa cakes, but sadly I can't eat them because I am vegan. So if you want to fire any good vegan Jaffa cake recipes in there, do it. Abhishek Saini, why no innovation in tablets these days? Such a good point. I'm currently reviewing the tablets, the media pads, that's the one. And they're really great. Android 8 and lots of power under the hood, really good connectivity. The 4G speeds you can get on them are off the chart. Those Huawei modems fly, but there is no true innovation. And when you look at Android P, there is no true innovation for tablets hardwired into Google's operating system. I kind of feel like Google has thrown the towel in when it comes to tablets, and if they haven't thrown the towel in, then at the very least it's gonna be like a big reboot that's going to follow when someone manages to find out how to make Android tablets next level. Currently, they're just handy consumer tools for anyone who wants something that isn't an iPad because they don't want to spend that much money. That's a good question though. P20 Pro, the print sensor in the back. No, I think the P20 Pro has a fingerprint sensor in the front. The P20 or P20 Lite, based on the leaks, have the fingerprint sensor in the back. The P20 Lite looks so much like the Honor 9 Lite, that's the one. The Honor 9 Lite, which I've reviewed techradar.com for my review of that, really liked it, 4 stars out of 5, great value for money, even if it isn't perfect. But that's like a £100 and something device. Like if this ends up being, the P20 Lite ends up being similar looks wise, I feel really hard done by, like from a design perspective. That said, I have to admit the Honor 9 Lite does punch above its price point design wise a lot. Should phone makers focus on how many cameras they have, or should they focus on software? That's from King of the Monsters. A really good question, mainly because we've done that comparison around bokeh modes, and the Google Pixel 2 XL won our bokeh mode contest. And the phone has one camera on the back, one camera at the front. Google's nailed software. It's able to make some beautiful pictures from having just one really, really decent optically image stabilized lens sensor combination. And also the front camera is really good, and the pictures taken on the front camera are really good, suggesting, including the bokeh pictures, a blurred background, sharp foreground, then that suggests you don't need multiple images in order to take a good picture, or take a good picture in portrait mode, multiple cameras even. So that, yeah, should they be? It's all going to come down to how the P20 Pro actually fares in real life. But if we get it in and it blows all our minds and it makes us reevaluate what a good camera phone is, and it's the best thing we've seen, absolutely, more cameras the better if it does something revolutionary. But if it's just there and it doesn't actually result in a better picture, then we'll have to ask the question, is it just a marketing ploy? Will it have face lock? So Huawei's Face Unlock, introduced on the Honor View 10, is not sensor based, it is camera based. So at the very least, I'd expect that, because we've seen it on an Honor device before. So we've seen it on a Huawei Emotion UI device, and it works really well on the View 10. The View 10 also has that cool feature there where it can look at your face, and based on whether to you looking at it, it can show details about your notifications on the lock screen or not. So that's a really, really nice feature. So hopefully it will have Face Unlock as well. The launching of the P20 Pro will decrease the price of the Mate 10 Pro ? It may well do, and if it does, the Mate 10 Pro is still an excellent, excellent smartphone. Specifically when it comes to battery, it beats the rest, and it is something I'd happily use as my daily smartphone. Loads more questions just popped in. Thanks guys. So if you wonder why I suddenly get surprised, because the live chat jumps every time a whole bunch of questions go in there, so really appreciate that. TechSpot asks, can I use some of your videos on my website if I give credits? Absolutely, just credit the channel. Insights into the upcoming iPhone SE2, Samsung Galaxy X, OnePlus 6, HTC U12, Google Pixel 3, and Xiaomi Mi Mix 2S. All the phones. There have been loads of leaks around all of them, and again, techradar.com is where you'll find all of them, Juno. We saw a Mi Mix 2S leak today. That was a press shot. Google Pixel 3 we won't be seeing until later this year, but based on Android P and the information we can draw from that, you can probably guess it's going to have a notch in there. The HTC U12 leaked as well, with its dual camera setup. OnePlus 6 will be expecting around June, July. Same with the Honor 10. And the Samsung Galaxy X, I don't know that much about. And same with the iPhone SE2. The iPhone SE2 looks like it's going to be an iPhone 10, only with a smaller form factor. Right, how does Huawei manage the smoothness, unlike Samsung, in spite of a heavy skin? So that's like Samsung, actually, from my experience with the Note and the Galaxy S9 Plus, has managed to create a smooth interface. So I can't quiet answer that one, and that was a question from Like Yagami. Oh, I see what you've done there. So that is a Death Note reference, if I'm not mistaken. Got to love Death Note, even if the Netflix reboot was absolutely terrible. Ishmael Hussein, is it worth waiting for the iPhone SE2? I would say hang tight if you don't want to fork up for the iPhone 10. Alternatively, you do have all those Android phones coming out with notches if it is just the design that you are in love with. Otherwise, if you're into the camera only, you can opt for an iPhone 8 or 8 Plus. 8 Plus will give you the better battery and the portrait effect, because the 8 Plus camera is about on par with the iPhone 10. So 8 Plus is still an excellent smartphone. Will the P20 Pro be better at security than the iPhone 10? I'm not going to say it'll be better, but Huawei phones offer biometric security within the UI for things as specific as files. So you can lock applications and files with a fingerprint, for example. So I don't know if the P20 will be better, but the P20 will probably be at the very least more versatile. I don't think the leaked render is true if it's really going to be 40 megapixels. That's from Joy. And that's going back to what I was saying earlier about the sensor size just looking really teeny tiny for a 40 megapixel camera. And I'd agree, but we can't say anything for sure until next week. Tuesday, it's going to launch. I cannot wait, and I will be there. Hopefully we'll be able to do a live show from the launch event, internet pending, so watch this space. P20, so I will wait for the HTC U12. It will probably surely have an even better camera, or the OnePlus 6. A lot of love for the HTC U12. The U11 was really good, really good. And the U11 Plus as well, an excellent phone, which is a shame because it didn't make any carriers in the UK, so it wasn't widely available. But it was still a great purchase offline, and it was excellent value for money with 128 gigabytes of storage. Hopefully more retailers and networks will pick up the U12, and it will, yeah, it'll fly and get back HTC back into the mobile game. Cannot wait for your versus video of the Mate 10 Pro and P20 Pro. That's from Dahl, thank you. We'll be sure to do one. Will the P20 Pro have stereo speakers? I'm guessing it will. All of the devices from Huawei, the last 2 generations, have had stereo speakers, especially now that the Samsung Galaxy S9's upped its speaker game with its AKG tuning and Dolby Atmos sound. It sounds very good. 40% louder than the old Galaxy S8. So if Huawei doesn't put stereo speakers in, I would be very surprised. The question is, will it have a 3.5mm headphone jack? I think that's the one that's going to be up in the air a lot more. If you remember, the Mate 10 had a headphone jack, but the Mate 10 Pro did not. Have I had any green beer on St. Patrick's Day? I haven't, but happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Alan Lee. Does the notch affect your opinion of a phone? No, it doesn't. I've used phones with notches, I've used phones without notches. It's a phone's specific stability, camera performance and battery, and I would say actually camera and battery and performance, and i.e. not slowing down, the 3 biggest factors for me. Screen's a big one, but I'm not hugely fussed on screen. The other one is storage. If a device now has 32 gigabytes of storage, it's unusable for me. It has to have a minimum of 64, and if it isn't expandable, a minimum of 128 gigabytes. And I'd recommend that to everybody out there who wants to future-proof their phone. Light Fusion is for better selfies in low light. That's from Light Yagami. So that might be another leak that I haven't seen. I will be Googling that straight after this live show. The U11 Plus's camera is so good, but unfortunately that phone is underrated. I agree with you 100% on that. Eagerly, and that's from Nadal. Joy says, I'm eagerly awaiting the Huawei launch. Let's see what Huawei really has in store. I love the 808. I never used the 1020. I love the 1020 as well. The 808 and the 1020 were 2 of the most exciting smartphones I have ever used in my life. And that is why I have incredibly high hopes, based on the leaks, for the Huawei P20 Pro. We have the last question of the day from Junar. It has been an absolutely buzzing chat room. Like there have been at least 71, there have been 71 of you in here at any one time. So that's really great going. So Junar says the difference between Huawei, Kirin, Samsung, Qualcomm, Exynos chips, iPhone he said, okay, so Junon's saying the key difference between all of these phones is a chip. I'd actually argue with you on that one. And this really specifically comes down to the camera experience. The key difference between all of these phones is software, from Emotion UI right through to stock Android, right through to the processing that these manufacturers do to images, which is what makes a Google Pixel 2 such an incredible camera phone, right through to the freedom that these manufacturers give you to tweak the photos before you've even taken them. So the P20 Pro will more than likely have the Huawei shooting modes we've come to see in the past. That enables things like long exposures through the light painting mode, night modes, that as long as you prop this thing on a steady surface, you can get some really, really beautiful shots. Like imagine you can take an 8-second low light shot stabilized with a tripod, and that's 40 megapixels if you want it to be, if the leaks are true, and that means at 8 seconds you'll be able to do it at ISO 100. Bear with me guys for anyone who's not into not into photography, but ISO 100, 8 seconds, 40 megapixels, you won't have any noise in there and you will be able to capture so much detail. You'll be able to do things like grab mind-blowing star trails, even if you do have a smaller sensor. The manual modes that, like in particular Huawei in this instance gives you access to, mean you can override a lot of the barriers that are created with a smaller sensor. That's what I loved about the 808 PureView, that's what I loved about the Lumia 1020, and I mean, hopefully this thing will ship with a mobile tripod holder in the box or something to that effect, to just really encourage people to get a little bit geeky with the photography if they try and go down a really, really hardcore photographer route, because that's what got me into tech and smartphones and photography in the first place, when everything kind of met and I started thinking to myself, am I even going to need a compact camera, or will my smartphone suffice? And based on phones today, using the Pixel 2 XL, smartphones suffice for a good 80%. Where they fall down is video, and specifically they fall down in audio recording. I'd love it if I could just plug in my lapel mic into my Google Pixel 2 XL. But that's where I stand on it. The P20 looks like it's going to be a geek stream, and I am an absolute geek. P20 Pro, that is. But we'll have to watch this space. Next week, Tuesday, it's going to drop. I'll be there. No more pertinent questions. Just one on battery life, King of Monsters. Do you think the Huawei P20 Pro battery life will be better than the Mate 10 Pro? The leak I've seen, I think it said it was 4,000 milliamps, which is the same. If it has the same size screen, it will be about the same, given it has the same chipset inside, and that is no bad thing because the Mate 10 Pro was amazing. And that, my friends, is this live show over and out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've been super conversing. I've really appreciated it, especially being all alone on this couch. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and found it useful. Like I've said at various times in the show, techradar.com is where you want to go to find out the latest on the Huawei P20 and all the other phones you spoke about and asked about, the OnePlus 6, Honor 10, etc. But yeah, thanks for watching guys. Bye.